Today, our goal is going to be rendering a surface pattern onto a surface in one of our already rendered either fashion drawing or vignette. And how we are going to start is we are going to set up a custom sized canvas. So you will need your iPad out and ready with Adobe open. We're going to start by setting up our canvas, which starts with selecting custom size from our home screen. And the custom size is set over here. And we want to change this from pixels to inches or centimeters if you're comfortable with the metric system. And we are going to set this to the width of our paper. If you have a fashion drawing and you drew in portrait mode, so up and down, your width will be 9 inches and your height will be 12. If you had a vignette that you did, you'll reverse those and your width will be 12 and your height will be 9. If you used a different size paper, you can also put that in. I think some of you have like 11 by 14.
Whatever you gave us.
Yeah, 11 by 14 is I think what I brought in. So I happen to have 9 by 12. If you have a different size paper, go with that. Alternatively, 9 by 12 and 11 by 14 are similar enough ratios that you'll be fine. And then you're going to choose your orientation, which, oh, okay, it's set for me. I guess I could have just switched orientation and told it a different way, but that's fine. And then we're going to go to our pixel size, and we're going to put in 300 for PPI. And so that stands for pixels per inch. It is the digital equivalent of DPI, which is a printing term of dots per inch. 300 just means that we're going to be in a higher resolution. And then background is white, that is totally fine, and we're going to create the document. After we've created the document, I'd like to zoom out so I can actually see the edges of my canvas. And then we're going to have to, on your iPads, you'll probably have to pop them out of the case. We're going to take 2 pictures. We're going to take one picture that is a picture of our drawing, and one picture that is a picture of our fabric. When you're taking a photo of your drawing, it's acceptable of it to be like this. This normally wouldn't be an acceptable drawing for turn-in. You know, it's not cropped, it's got this big shadow here. For this, we basically just want it so that we don't have to redo any of our drawing. For our fabric, you want a nice, you know, straight on picture, but it also does not have to be perfect. It can be shadowed, your fabric can be a little wrinkly, as long as you can see the main motif, or another option that I did. And we'll probably demo this one as well for you because they're very different approaches to a pattern for this project. We are going to leave those behind in photo and go to Fresco. And we are first going to come down, oh, I want to recenter this a little. Come down to this little icon that is the photo and a plus sign. It says this photo stack. And we're going to hit photos. And then we're going to select our drawing. So this is the image that I have of my drawing, and I'm going to turn it and then hit done. Next, I'm going to go over to the slide bars here, which are my layer properties, and I'm going to lower the opacity and then click them again to make them go away.
How much are we lowering it?
let's see, where did I go? I would go about 50%. Should be fine. It doesn't have to be exact. And then we're going to click transform. And we're going to pull the image and make it large enough so that most of our actual drawing is centered over the canvas.
Where's transform?
Transform is over here on the left hand side of your screen, and it is this crossbars with an arrow beside it, so it's right there. And once you have it the size that you want, you will hit done. Once we have our picture up, we are going to go ahead and go to our vector brushes. So if you remember, that's 1, 2, 3 down is our vector brushes. I'm going to, if you tap it once, it selects it. If you tap it again, it opens the menu. I'm going to go to basic. And last time we pretty much exclusively used the round brush. You're welcome to keep using the round brush. I also like using the taper brush sometimes. What you'll watch for on the taper brush is how fast you are moving. It controls partially how it tapers and the pressure that you put down. So for example, on this taper brush, if I come through here and I'm moving really slow, I get a thin line. And remember, I can hold there at the end for it to snap into a perfect shape rather than this like little wonky shape. But if I go really fast and I add more pressure, I have the line set down a little bit more now. But if I had it turned up and I went really fast, it tends to get a little bit wider at some points. So you'll just want to play around with that if you choose to do the taper brush. I'm going to use it today because I think it gives a nice quality of line. We are going to choose something in our scene. So a piece of furniture. So if you haven't chose a chair, or if you're doing the one with the bed, you could choose like the bedspread. I'm going with the chair, one, because it has so many different shapes and forms involved in the makeup of it, that I can demo a lot of different tools for you on one drawing. If you are in fashion design, we are going to eventually trace our entire, look, I need to hide some of these things. I have a lot of, we're eventually going to trace all of our line work, but you can focus on just one area of your design for now. So if you have a jacket or something that you want to apply this pattern to, or a skirt, you can focus on just tracing that.
Sorry, I did kind of score since I still some years.
So we're going to take the next little bit to just do our outlining. Some things to remember for outlining is that you can hold at the end to get it to snap to a curve or a straight line. If you go too slow, sometimes it'll be like, oh, your line is not as straight as you were thinking it was, or if you're trying to do a circle. Last time I tried to demonstrate this and it like wouldn't do it for me. But if your circle is like a little bit too, yeah, now it's snapping perfect for me every time. But if you ever get a wonky circle, just go back and try to draw it again with a smoother motion. We're going to go through and do this tracing. I'm going to pause the video here, do the tracing. So once we have our entire furniture piece drawn, we are going to create a new layer. And so that is just this little box with a plus sign in it. And we've created a new layer. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to adjust the color on our brush. So we're going to come down to the bottom here. And there's recents and then there's all, which might have some colors here for you. I'm going to choose a bright blue color because I like to do my grids in blue, but you could really choose any color that is going to be significantly enough different from your fabric. Keep in mind that just because the colors are what they are on your fabric today doesn't mean that you can't change them too. So one of the fabrics I have does have bright blue in it, but I'll probably just render it a different color. On this new layer, I'm also going to change my brush. I'm still staying in vector brushes, but if I was using the taper brush, I'm going to switch back to round. And I'm going to adjust my size and make sure it's a nice small size. For me, that's a 10 on this page. And I'm going to begin by drawing a grid. And the first place I'm going to start is just where it's easiest for me to imagine laying flat parallel lines along the surface. For me, I think that's going to be the seat of my chair. And so I'm going to start by just drawing a line that goes down the middle of my chair. And then if I hold at the end, I can adjust so that it feels like it's hitting the middle of the front as well. So just a tiny bit off. I want it to start back here a little bit more. And then, so I want this line to be running parallel with this line and this line if it was over here. I'm going to do that again, and I'm going to break up my space. And the size of grid that you need to draw depends entirely on the fabric that you've chosen. So if you've chosen a very small scale fabric, you might want a smaller scale grid. If it's a larger scale fabric, you can probably get away with a larger scale grid. I'm just going to kind of try to hit a happy medium here, because I want to show you both a smaller scale, more geometric based pattern versus a large motif based pattern. Once I get my lines going one direction, I'm going to repeat my process, but going, I guess, horizontally is the best word for it here, across the cushion. So that I've created a grid. The next step is where it starts getting tricky, because I need to bend my grid to go around my shape. So here in the front, the line that is coming to the front of my cushion now needs to actually curve a little bit for the curve of my cushion, like this. It's still going to ultimately, I'll do this in another color so that you can see it, line up along a straight line. But I'm going to evenly curve out to match the curve of my chair here. So, I'll go back color. So you kind of have to imagine a straight line going down and then draw a curve that meets both ends of that straight line. The curved surfaces are the hardest to do this on. I'm also going to make sure that I have a line for my grids right across the front here and then across the bottom of this cushion, just to separate out these spaces. And I want a line to continue wherever there would have been a line from up here. Now I have the front of the chair. I can drop down a straight line once again because the front of my chair doesn't curve. This step, eventually you don't necessarily need to do. Once you can successfully imagine this grid, you don't have to make it every time. But the very first times that we're doing this, it is definitely easier to draw in a representation of it, at least on any of the really like curvy changing surfaces. And then eventually, bit by bit, you'll realize, oh, I don't think that I actually need the grid so much anymore. I'm going to do the similar thing that I did here up on the arms, where I'm going to find where this line starts and curve it to match the curvature of my arm. And draw in a straight line to divide the space up into a grid. People who are doing fashion, how does this apply to you? When I do a fashion drawing, one of the things that I'm going to do is whatever piece that I'm working on, I'm going to draw out a grid on that as well. The grid was super helpful to me when I did this one because I was drawing a plaid, so I was also thinking about the scale of my lines. Up through here, I basically have a cone shape, so I can, oops, maybe change the color so that you can see it. I have a cone shape, so I'm going to draw these curves first, actually, and put in my grid. And then I will end up erasing out anything on these lapels because they will end up having their like a separate grid system, but it was easier to just draw over them and then erase than to try to draw around them. I could have drawn around them though if I didn't want to do this little song and dance there. Then I'm going to tackle the arm, which has curves going like that. Where there's a fold here, I'm going to stop that curve because I actually get a curve of the fold that goes this way. I'm going to do the same thing on my arms here. And then when I get to the skirt, each one of these I'm going to treat as a cone now. So it might be easiest for me to divide this up based off of the cones that I'm going to divide the space into. And now I can draw in these curves. That was a little off. Oh. Going up this way, and if I want to further subdivide this, I can start from the center and pull out to the center down here. So you'll want to do that on whatever form you're choosing in your fashion drawing too. Keep in mind, anytime there's something like a fold or a change in direction of the fabric, that you're probably going to end up changing the direction of your grid as well. So for example, the collar here, the fabric direction ends up sitting across the collar like this, and I have to curve my grid to match it and match these lines.